baby. What's good, everybody? Welcome. I guess we'll call it MLB Strategy Show. We've got 4 days until liftoff. MLB season about to get underway. 60-game, abbreviated season. A ton of different stuff happening, and we're here to break all of that down with you. We'll also be back tomorrow. We will be here Wednesday. And then, of course, as the season commences on Thursday, we'll be doing a whole lot more. And stay tuned for all of our NBA and NHL content that's coming down the pike any day now. Anyway, I'm Dave Loughran. With me, Jake Hari and Josh Engleman. Jake, it's been a long time since I've seen that pretty face.
Yeah, man, it's fun to be back. I was watching you guys all the time and missing out on talking sports. So it's weird. Like, we finally get sports back after all this time. So I'm just excited to talk to you guys and talk about Vegas and MLB and NHL and you guys talking NBA. So it's a fun time.
Yeah, Josh, you and myself and Ben have been doing a show for the past 3-4 months. We did the NBA 2K Sims. So not as pleased to see you, but I do enjoy talking baseball with you. We've done the strategy show for a while now, and you've put together a nice little spreadsheet just to give us an idea of what we're looking at. I think most people watching would agree, unless you're season-long players or you're just diehard baseball fans 365 days a year, that there's a whole lot to catch up on over the next few days before we get underway.
Yeah, I felt ready for baseball in early March. Like, I started working on my documents and getting my model together, understanding who was where, and then everything got put on ice, and I felt like I never saw baseball again as of 2 weeks ago. So it took me a little bit to get my bearings and remember where everybody signed and all of the changes that happened. I barely remember that the Astros got caught cheating. Like, that's not even a thing to me any longer. No, it's just nobody cares. So at the very least, I'm excited to dive in, mostly because the Braves have a decent chance of going to the World Series, and that's really all that matters to me.
Glad to have everybody with us, man. I think everyone's just as excited as we are. Look, I'm stoked for baseball, but the fact that we're getting baseball and basketball and playoff hockey overlapping with each other, flowing into NFL, you just can't beat that, man. But anyway, let's dive into it, Jake. We got a lot to talk about here, and I think it's important we kick it off with what in the world's going on with this 60-game schedule. So you've got 60 games, but it's not just that. 40 games are going to be played in division, right? 40 games played in division. The 20 games are interleague games, and there's a significant amount of other changes that are going to be taking place. How do these affect the game, and how are they going to affect us from a DFS perspective?
Yeah, the games will be quicker. You'll be able to go to bed earlier at night with this new extra innings rule. So that's something that I like. Pitchers, I know one of the big rules is that relief pitchers either have to close out an inning or face at least 3 batters. I haven't really figured out if that's going to affect us at all. But some expanded rosters as well. I think it's more likely some of the guys that are already likely to get pinch hit for might come out of the game earlier or more often. Some of the platoon split guys. So I'm trying to think, like Chris Owings, I think is one of those guys. Like, bats against lefties might, get 3 at bats. Now he might get 2 at bats some games. Every game is a dire win situation. Like, you can't have a bad 2-week stretch. Even if you're a good team, like you're going to have a really tough time digging out of that. So I think it'll just be more of like a playoff atmosphere a couple weeks into the season. So it's hard to say how it'll actually affect DFS, but those are some things that I'm thinking about so far.
Yeah, and Greg S. says, who's the new guy on the right? That's how long this layoff has been. That anybody would think Jake is new. Jake's been at Awesemo before I have, as a matter of fact, doing amazing baseball content and really putting out some of the most preeminent NHL content that you'll find. So we'll be seeing a lot of Jake going forward. Josh, and by the way, if you guys have questions, we're all in this one together. So like the question, who was it that just asked? Jace asks, what's the extra inning rule? So Josh, they're going to be putting a runner on second base to start extra innings. there will be a universal designated hitter. You can no longer spit or shake hands. There will be no ball or bat boys. There's a lot changing, man. But I think the universal DH plays the biggest role from a fantasy standpoint.
Oh, without question. And this should have been something that's existed for years. And now we're finally getting it, and it'll never go away now. Thank God for putting it in. Nobody wants to watch pitchers hit. It's fun once every 400 plate appearances when one of them goes yard.
Yeah, like Madison Bumgarner, not too bad to watch.
Right. Few and far between. Just make the game better. I couldn't be happier there. I hate the extra innings rule, but whatever ends the game faster works for me. I'm just really excited to truly, I'm excited to just see baseball. And I haven't said that in a while. So whatever they want to change is cool with me, as long as it means there's a game starting Thursday.
Yeah. And look, the extra innings thing, I don't have an issue with it. It speeds the game up fine. I don't really care about that. I think one of the biggest factors here for like season-long players is the fact that you're getting 40 games in your division. Some of them, it's going to make it much easier, much more difficult. From a DFS standpoint, you're going to have some pitchers out there that aren't getting nearly as many good quality opportunities as they would if they're facing, all 30 teams over 162 game stretch. So that's going to make things really interesting. There's 10 playoff teams that get in. The disabled list goes from 15 to 10 days, and from 60 down to 45. One of the biggest things, and we'll get into DFS in just a second here, Jake, but I'm really fascinated to see what the trade deadline is going to look like. Because as you just mentioned, you're going to have teams that are way better than teams that are ahead of them in the standings, but maybe it's been 2 weeks and they just got off to a slow start. Like if this was the Nationals last year, there's pretty much no way they win the World Series or probably even make the playoffs. And I think that's going to loom large. Do teams that are in a competitive spot, do they say, look, we know we're not good enough. We're not going to go and acquire expensive assets to rent them for 1 year? And do teams that are out of it but know they're going to be good next year, do they sell? I don't know if we're going to see much happen at the trade deadline at all.
Yeah, I mean, like everyone outside of probably a couple teams that are going to be close to locking up a spot, come August 31st, which is when the trade deadline actually is. I just looked that up. Like every team is going to be kind of close. Like they could probably talk themselves into, like even the Marlins, like let's say the Marlins start off, or someone like that, the Tigers start off like 18-16. Like, are they a contender? Probably not. They're probably going to lose, 15 games in the last month, 16 games. But like teams like that can talk themselves into stuff. And so I think, like you said, Lofty, I don't think there's going to be that much going on around the trade deadline one way or the other.
Yeah, and when we take a look at some Vegas odds here, things get interesting, Josh. On the Daily Sports Show, we got into this quite a bit, but some of these odds are insane. Like Mike Trout, the fact that this man is plus 200 to win the AL MVP. Think about how crazy that is. Plus 200 to win the AL MVP. Aaron Judge is the second best odds at plus 800. In the NL, Mookie Betts is plus 550 with the best odds. Bellinger at the second best at plus 700. Like anybody that's looking into these future props, these player futures, understand something. Mike Trout over 162 game season has a much better likelihood of winning the MVP than he does in 60 games.
No doubt about that. Plus 200 is lunacy to me. I can't imagine wanting to make that bet in any sort of. It's just 2 bad weeks and you are out of that race. All things, because someone's going to be on a heater for most of it, and it's going to be hard to overcome that unless that other guy's team is just dreadful. I love looking at some of these props, though. I think the pool, I mean, I don't think I'm in the minority. I think the pool for people that could win the MVP or the Cy Young is way bigger than it normally is. And we could see some really, really weird stuff. We were talking about the schedule before. I wanted to bring this up because I didn't think about it. What's it called? Time on the roster. What's the word I'm looking for?
Time in the
So normally we have to worry about guys coming up in like the second week of the season or June 1st because they don't want to start their service
arbitration.
Time. There we go.
Oh, okay.
I haven't seen anything about the way that service time is accrued for this 60-game season in comparison to a 162-game season. Do you just have to put somebody on ice for like the first 2 games and then you get to call them up so that everything's okay? Like, I don't know where the cutoffs are now. I haven't seen anything about high-level prospects that they're going to try to like skirt the system for this year. That's a big piece of this to me. If, like Chris Bryant, however many years ago, like how early would he be up if this year was the year that he was coming up?
And the minor league season was canceled.
Right.
So like how does that work? Do they just stay at home and practice in their backyard? Serious question. Like how is this going to work knowing that there is no minor league season, Jake?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess we don't really think about the minor leagues that often, but like guys that are rehabbing, like if you get hurt the first couple of games, you go on I think it's a 45-day DL this year.
So the 15-day move to 10 and the 60-day move to 45 for this.
Okay, yeah. So like you could plausibly come back. Like how do you can't see game action though until you're back. So like if guys do go on a 10-day DL or the 45-day DL and come back, like that might be someone you might want to avoid just because they haven't seen game action. They might see some BP, but like you can't really replicate seeing Clayton Kershaw in his prime curveball or something like that when you haven't for 2 weeks or a month and a half if it's the longer term injury.
It's a great point. Like you're talking about these guys even on 14-day or 15-day DL, going into a minor league or 2 minor league tune-up starts, Josh, and you see that frequently. I know you can. I suppose we could still do simulation games, but does not having that legitimate in-game action as a pitcher, does that kind of stunt your return? There's so many question marks here, and that's one that really hasn't been discussed a lot. There are no tune-up performances in single, double, AAA games.
To me, I think it's probably worse for the hitters. My first thought would just be the timing of hitting is going to be a lot more difficult than anybody else. My thought would be that it's worse for like a pitcher's arm. I think we could see more weird injuries for a pitcher, but I would expect pitching to be more dominant than hitting just because it's easier to go out and throw, but to see live MLB pitching is not something you do normally during the quarantine.
Yeah, I don't know. I think in a spot like this, if I'm betting anything, I'm looking to get in on probably Cy Young, or I'm sorry, not Cy Young, strikeout leaders and stuff like that. Because Josh, you're somebody that's pretty analytic centric, right? And we've seen, we know that strikeouts will normalize quicker than home runs or even to some batting average to a large extent, because there's so many things. We look at BABIP, and BABIP significantly. You look at someone that has a 350 BABIP, they're batting 210 on the season, and vice versa. Pitchers get BABIP to death as well, but oftentimes those are guys that are contact pitchers. What about strikeouts? When you take a look at Garrett Cole, plus 225 to win strikeout leader, Max Scherzer plus 550. I think you're going to see strikeouts. I think we're going to see the fuller picture for strikeouts much sooner than we do for hitters and their power numbers.
Yeah, normally the strikeout rate stabilizes around 70 batters face, oddly enough. Now, by stabilize, it's basically like a 50-50 regress to the mean. That's one of the lowest rates other than hitter strikeout rate, oddly enough, but you don't really care how much a hitter strikes out. You're going to know how pitchers are looking pretty quickly. Basically 2 games in, you can get a good idea of what their stuff is going to look like. You can't say the same for many. Like home run rate stabilizes for hitters around 170 plate appearances. That's like the season. So we might see guys with like 450 BABIPs and like really ridiculous data over 60 games. It's going to be like a video game kind of.
Exotic Angel says, predicting, and you heard it here first, Yankees will be 50-10. I don't
I'll take that.
Through 60 games, I don't believe a team has ever done that. I think the best record was 48-11-1, I think, back in the early 1900s. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the best record had a tie in there, number one. That's how you know how long ago it was. But I don't think we've ever had a 50-10 team to start the first 60 games of the season. Maybe there was a 60-game stretch where a team went 50-10, but I don't believe we've seen it over the first 60. Buckeye Fan for Life says everyone is here except Ship. He's on a bender. No, I don't. He's not on a bender, and he'll be back with us tonight. Actually, we've got an NBA refresher show coming up at 6 p.m. So you'll want to be around for that. That's going to be a fun one. But Josh, when we look further into what we've got going on here, there's a lot that has changed. Now, in basketball, there's not as much, but because of the coronavirus, there's a whole lot that affects them. Not, players aren't moving teams and so on and so forth. But in baseball, the last time we had action was before the previous offseason. There was no pause and restart here. This is the beginning of the season. So when we look at players on new teams, is there anything big looking from a DFS angle that we need to be paying close attention to? Guys that are in better environments, worse environments, better teams, tougher schedule because of the division, so on and so forth.
Mookie Betts to the NL and playing in LA is like all sorts of different weird things. It's probably better for him to be in Boston, but he's on a better team in LA. Probably not a better park for him, although his skill set fits that park better than it probably does in Boston. It's a really weird one. I'm anxious to see how he plays because I think he's one of the best players in the league. By the way, last season, all 60-game rolling stretches for any team, only one team won more than 50 games in any 60-game sample. Dodgers went 51-9 during a 60-game sample just in 2019. So that's sort of like the ceiling of what you could expect.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Makes sense. And I don't think, like I said, I guess it doesn't matter, but no team, I believe, has gone 50-10 in the first 60 games of a season.
Right. No, Laffy, you were dead on. I just looked it up. 48, 11, and 11. 19-12 Giants.
19-12, 48, 11, and 1, you said?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to get that record this year.
No, probably not. But Jake, I look at somebody like Garrett Cole. This is pretty significant. You go from somewhere in Houston at Minute Maid Park. Now, Minute Maid Park was, to be fair, depending on whether you're lefty or a righty, could be a hitter-friendly park, but it was pretty neutral. Yankee Stadium, you don't get more lefty-friendly than Yankee Stadium. That right field wall is super, super short. And we've seen lefties come in there and just absolutely mash guys that don't even have power. So now Garrett Cole, who started 33 games for the Astros last year, 32 for them in 2018, now he joins the New York Yankees. I think this is a very interesting one for a number of reasons. One, the park. He's a great strikeout pitcher, so he should be able to alleviate a lot of that hard contact. But he did give up a good amount of home runs. Him and Verlander last year got tagged a decent amount. Now, fortunately, most of those shots were with bases empty or only one runner on. They usually didn't even have one runner on, but he gave up 29 home runs last season. Do you think that's going to be an issue for Garrett Cole at Yankee Stadium this year?
It might be. I mean, it might just increase his variance, because he strikes out lefties at just an insane rate. I think he strikes out quite a few more lefties than righties, just like Verlander. Something in the water over in Houston, we found out. So, I mean, maybe you see teams just throw as many lefties against Cole, hope he's not on, and just try to hit a bunch of solo shots as a way to get runs off him in Yankee Stadium. That's more likely, like you said, but it's not like he can't strike out lefties at an insane clip. So it might actually increase his floor and his upside. And then the one thing I was thinking about with Cole, and this might not be that big of an issue, but it might be an issue for some pitchers, is just right away into the season, first couple starts, these guys aren't really stretched out. So I wonder if the DraftKings and FanDuel and SuperDraft, I guess SuperDraft doesn't have pricing, but the multipliers, I wonder if that is going to be baked into the pricing, or I'd be more looking to get to guys that in the 8 and 9K range, just kind of thinking about it here without seeing the salaries just yet. You're just not going to have guys throwing 110 pitches for a good part of the season. So I don't know, might be something to look into over the next few days, like which pitchers have thrown simulated games that have got 75, 80 pitches recently that, could start off the season throwing 90, 95. That might be a potential edge you could realize.
No question.
Cole struck out 44% of lefties last year.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's outrageous. I want to get into guys like Corey Kluber and a few others, but Jake segued us nicely into probably the most pressing question from a fantasy angle that we will have this season, Josh. It's not the DH. It's not the extra innings rule. It's not that you can't spit. It's the fact that we don't know how managers are going to treat pitchers, whether they be aces, whether they be middle of the rotation guys, whether these are workhorses that can, generally speaking, go 110 pitches every single start. How do you anticipate this happening? And how much do you think bullpen will have an effect on whether or not these guys get lengthy starts? In that, will much better bullpens with several good arms, left-handed and right-handed, like the Rays, will they make it so these starters don't need to go longer? It's a really tough question. And I think early on, we're going to have to pay super close attention to how these managers are working their rotations, particularly at the top of them.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see a lot of team-specific stuff. Some of these more sabermetrically inclined teams are going to do some weird stuff for sure, especially at the back end of their rotation. They're 3, 4, 5 type starters. For guys like Cole or Scherzer or Verlander, I think they're going to just go out there and pitch until they feel good or have some sort of like set pitch count where they're coming out at 90 instead of 105 or something. I don't think it really affects the guys at the top end all that much, other than probably just removing like stupid, crazy, complete game 130 pitch joints. I think where we're going to get really weird is when we're trying to project like the fourth day of the regular season when everybody's starters are kind of crappy and they're playing each other. That is going to be a full-on crapshoot of figuring out how long some of these guys are actually going to be in the game.
Kevin Cash kind of he kind of got the we've seen it before, but Kevin Cash went all out last year as far as bullpen games go, Jake. And we actually saw as the season progressed, a lot of other managers started running bullpen games out there, right? Like Texas, Seattle was doing some bullpen games. A lot of these teams that didn't have a reliable fifth starter were starting to make that happen. We saw it. Minnesota did it several times towards the end of the year. Do you think we're going to see more bullpen games? Because as we all know, that is a fantasy nightmare from both ends. Not only just the idea that you've got to worry about what pitchers are going to be in there, and is there a long reliever that you can start, but the notion that even as far as hitters go, if you got a lefty that performs better from against left or right-handed pitchers, you don't know who's going to come in there afterwards. We don't know who the long reliever necessarily is going to be. It's an absolute nightmare.
It is, but it's one that, like in DFS, especially like more casual players that might not be subscribed to an Awesemo.com or another site out there, like they might have a really tough time trying to figure that out or getting good information or knowing which beat writers to follow for the teams as far as which guy is coming in. So like with Tampa, I would say like 95% of the time we were pretty confident in who was coming in, whether it's Chirinos or Yarbrough or whoever it was. But some of these other teams, and especially now with like, I'm assuming you can't have that many content people for like in the stands or like close to the team physically, or, like they just might not get good information. So yeah, I think it's we're going to see more of that. It was successful. Tampa, I think they started doing it in 2018, right? Like that was when they first implemented it.
And then last year we saw a lot more of it, but yeah, 2018 was the inception, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
And like they've put together a couple decent seasons with like, frankly, just really bad pitching, like really bad starting pitching, but just knowing how to play matchups and stuff. So I think we'll see more teams adopt that, especially with like like I mentioned, the playoff atmosphere, that it's going to be just a few weeks into the season. Like you cannot give up 3, 4, 5 games in a row. So they're going to be doing everything. And I think you're going to see, like Josh alluded to, you're going to see some of these guys in fourth and fifth starting pitchers, like they're just going to get pulled in the fourth inning if they give up 4 runs, if they're in trouble. Whereas usually in April, in the first few games, like managers just let them figure it out, throw their 75, 80 pitches, whatever it is, get through 5 innings, giving up 5 runs. Like, I don't think you're going to see very much of that. Guys are going to have a really, really quick hook. And then on top of that, like, using the opener is going to be a big thing, I think, for a lot of new teams.
Yeah, Jake makes a good point, Josh. The short leash that we're going to see on, I don't want to say everybody, but you might even see situations where an ace comes out there, gets blown up, right? And he's 40 pitches into it, and he's giving up 5 runs. Manager pulls him and says, "Listen, dude, we're just going to start you 4 days from now instead of 5. Like, we'll get you back out there. You'll be fine. We'll gain you an extra start over the course of the season, but today's not your day."
I would do the exact opposite too. If like my number 4 starter gets bombed early, I'd let him throw every pitch that he possibly could just to not go to my bullpen, just to keep those guys ready for a game that matters. Because once you're down by a ton, there's no leverage left in that game.
Right.
There's no sense in spending any single individual inning on anybody worth a shit. So if you got to fill 7 more innings, fill it with the guy that just got absolutely creamed and the rest of the bad pitchers.
Or position players. Like, we saw a bunch of that last year. Even good teams, good teams, they're down 12-1 in the 7th. Like, they just throw in a position player, let them get bombed, give up 3 solo shots, and then just don't ruin your bullpen. I know it's expanded rosters, but I think it's only going to be maybe 1 or 2 more pitchers that you can actually get on the roster anyways for most teams. So, yes, expanded rosters, but I think you're going to see a lot of position players get some time on the bump here.
Do you guys think, I'll go to you, Josh, the whole sign stealing scandal, let's not forget about that. It's a pretty big deal, right? And there's a lot of speculation out there that, some of these Astro players are going to get plunked early and often, but you're not allowed to charge them out. You're not allowed to make any contact with anyone. Are they just going to have to sit there and eat these pitches coming at their heads? Okay, how about this? If we were to set a line on, will an Astros player, despite all of these rules, will an Astros player charge the mound at any point this season? What would you, Jake's shaking his head vigorously. Yes. Josh says no. Jake, you think there would be, you would set that as a favored line to yes?
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be Altuve, but maybe one of the bigger guys. Like, I don't know. They're going to get hit a lot, I think. Like, we might have forgotten about the Astros cheating or whatever, but like these pitchers, the Trevor Bauer type guys that,
it's
like,
definitely
these guys that hold the grudges. I don't even know if they play, but these guys are going to get hit a bunch in a 60-game season, and it's illegal to charge them out anyways, like during non-COVID season. So
that's true.
Like, they're just going to take their 5-game suspension or whatever. Like, they know it's going to happen, but they have to say
you're right.
They can't.
But man, that's devastating. You know what they should do? They should just hope that one of their lower level players gets plunked so he can eat that 5-game suspension. You cannot have one of your best players taking a 5-game suspension during a 60-game season.
It'll cost you a win. However, I don't think they're going to get plunked all that often, and I'm not really worried about the mound charging.
Really?
It would be really funny if they charged the mound, but not to throw punches, to like grab the dude and give him a hug or something. Just make that physical contact.
That would be worse. But yeah, you can't have Bregman going in there and doing something like that. I just think, I think Jake's right though. There will be something's going to happen. You're in the heat of the moment. You don't really care what the rules are.
I'm more interested on how they police spitting. There's going to be a new video every day of someone just like,
oh yeah,
out in the
like
outfield.
like the John Rahm thing yesterday. The ball
but every day.
Yeah, it's going to be every day.
And there was a cricket player who just spit on the ball to, I don't know, I guess they lube it up or something, and he got a warning, and then the umps were in there cleaning it off. I saw it on Twitter. I don't watch cricket, although it's wildly popular outside of America.
Whose job is it to clean the spit off the balls? What a terrible deal you get there. They make more than minimum wage.
It can't be fun. Jake, Corey
pitchers get to, just real quick on the spitting, pitchers do get to carry like a wet rag in their back pocket instead of spitting. But like, these guys are all creatures of habit. It's going to happen.
It'd be so tough.
It's impossible to not lick your hand and then be a pitcher. I think that's truly impossible for these guys to not
they all do it.
It's weird though, because when all of this happened, I'm always someone that I scratch my face or whatever. But when I went out in public, it was kind of like second nature almost. Maybe the first couple of days was weird. And then I just knew instinctively not to touch my face. Yeah. So I think you can learn behavior. You can train yourself not to do that. But Jake, I want to ask you about Corey Kluber. You haven't really heard enough about this one. And he's one of those guys that, came into last season, always high hopes for this guy. He was one of the elite righties in the league. He only started 7 games. He averaged, he had a strikeout rate of only 23%. But again, 7 games. He did struggle. There's no question about that. Walked 4 batters per 9 almost. Now he's in Texas in Globe Life. And I want to tie this into each other and get your guys' opinion on this because it's massively important. Not only is he in Globe Life, but he has to play the entire season in oppressively hot weather, right? 1 second, Jess. Globe Life Park in April and late March and May and even June, it's hot, but it's not nearly as bad as July and August. Philadelphia, the Midwest, you look at Cleveland, you look at Cincinnati, you look at Boston, New York. These are cities where through the first couple to 3 months of the season, it's not horrible out, but it's not oppressively hot. Now across the entire country, you're getting that. And parks like Globe Life, Josh, and Arlington are going to be brutal all season long.
So Globe Life has a retractable roof now.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's huge.
So massive help there. Whether they close it or not, I mean, Texas is lawless, so it might have to be 160 degrees before they do that. I forgot
all about that. You're right. But in general, the point stands that all of these teams are going to be playing in heat, whereas usually it's only a portion of the season where you do that, and pitchers benefit. Like pitchers should benefit in less than 90-degree temperatures. But we're in the juiced ball era now, Jake, and they're all going to be playing in super hot weather.
Yeah, that's a good point too that I hadn't even thought about. Like, you're not going to get the 38-degree games the snowstorm in Minneapolis. I forgot about that. Where you just lock in just even a bad pitcher, a 6K pitcher, but you can strike a few guys out and the ball's just not going to go anywhere if you hit it. We're not going to get those games. So that's a really good point. Going back to Kluber really quick, pitching in Texas, I don't think they're going to close the roof that often, right? That weather is just normal for them. It's COVID. They don't want to, close the roof and then someone gets COVID and then now they're on the hot seat. But I don't know.
Those maybe 300-foot tall roofs.
Yeah, I know. But it won't matter to people. It won't matter.
No, but it's all psychological. You're right. Not COVID, obviously, but the idea that the roof's open and now, it could be worse. So yeah, you're do I think closing a roof that's up there? Maybe you know what? I don't know. I'm not an epidemiologist or whatever their names are, Jake. All I know is that if they do close the roof, it's going to make a huge difference in terms of baseballs being hit. If they don't, Godspeed to the pitchers that have to sit in Arlington Stadium every day.
Yeah, have fun. And Kluber's strikeout rate, he was hurt last year, I think, before he was out. And we had talked about it on some shows, some strategy shows and Live Before Locks. He's not really the same guy, but maybe he could have a nice second half of his career if he can just kind of be that crafty guy. I want to say Bartolo Colon, but because Bartolo Colon, you forget, he was a really, really good pitcher for a while there. And then he still had some really great starts, really great DFS starts when he was 40 plus years old, because he just kind of knew how to get guys out with, weak fly balls or ground ball double plays. And I'm not saying Kluber's going to have a 14% K rate or something this year, but his fastball is slowed down a little bit. I'm looking at his FanGraphs page right now. He's not getting the difference between the fastball and the changeup as much, especially last season. So if he can, maybe have a 23, 24% K rate, he's still going to be usable for DFS. And we saw DraftKings especially they price guys way, way down in Texas. So you might be able to, like, you might be a discount guy, just super high upside, really, really, really low downside, as most pitchers are.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I don't know what you're going to see, but you're going to want to induce a decent amount of ground balls if you're Corey Kluber, if you're not getting the strikeouts, right? If you're not getting those strikeouts, you cannot be a fly ball pitcher at Globe Life. Hell, it's 90 plus degrees in Cincinnati right now. Great American's going to be a launching pad all season. So is Citizens Bank Park right now. It feels like it says on the weather app, feels like 105 degrees where I'm at right now. It's going to be insane, Josh. But another question that we brought up was Steven said, do you think Toronto's win total changes since they don't have a home to play in? Yeah, this is a really weird situation. And now I'm hearing that they might play their home games at PNC Park in Pittsburgh.
Huh. I saw Buffalo and then their spring training facility and were options. It probably doesn't matter, right? But
yeah, there's no fans.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, like the travel aspect matters. Not being able to ever be home is kind of
true.
A pain in the ass.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, I mean, you're on a 60-day or a 90-day road trip or something along those lines.
I think it's 60 games in like 66 days or something, 67 days.
So that's not ideal. I don't think it matters once they're playing. It's probably like a percentage point or so. It's really wild that they're not going to play home games. Like that's really crazy. And to play in Pittsburgh is even weirder. I mean, I get it from like a logistics standpoint. I would have just assumed they found a different, better spot than that.
But you know what? What does play into it, Jake, is the fact that if you're playing at PNC Park, that is one of the most hitter or pitcher friendly parks in the league. So we're talking about this crazy, oppressively hot weather. Granted, you're talking about the Rogers Center in Toronto where you've got a roof, but at the same time, you go somewhere like PNC Park, and now you're talking about a top 5 pitchers park in the league.
Yeah, for sure. But like we'll already know that. So whether the pricing reacts, I guess.
Exactly. For DFS, it shouldn't have a big impact outside of there might be some more Toronto pitchers each week that we can play that we normally wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever gets me away from the Toronto hitters this year, because I think I had them as my primary stack for all of 2019. That didn't go very well.
They were all like 3,500. Like
it was brutal.
Yeah. And just always popular.
Vlad Jr. at third base, 3,500 every day, and he'd get like a walk and 3 strikeouts. So frustrating.
Yeah.
The amount of Randall Grichuk I rostered last year. DraftKings sends out that email of like, these are the guys you rostered the most. I can't even imagine what those percentages look like.
Yeah, it was not good. They had a few guys that put up some solid numbers. The problem is they seem to never ever perform collectively. Like as a stack, you never got good numbers from it.
Dude, all they did was hit solo home runs. At one point in time, I'm almost positive it was Grichuk. He had like 22 dongs and 21 of them were solo shots. It's like, thanks for those RBIs, man.
It's crazy. But yeah, look, I think as long as, and we're going to, like I said, we'll have shows tomorrow. We'll have shows on Wednesday and Thursday, kind of continuing to prep everybody for the season as we get closer, because we're only 4 days away. But the biggest acquisitions are a couple of the ones that we just touched on. There aren't that many. I don't think there aren't that many where they make a huge difference. Like Kluber, Starling Marte to the Diamondbacks, Will Smith to the Braves, if you consider that significant. Mookie Betts, Zach Wheeler to the Phillies, Donaldson to the Twins, Garrett Cole to the Yankees. So I think overall, as long as you know who's on where, you don't really even need to, Josh. As long as each day you have everybody in the right spots, you don't really need to do a whole lot of homework on where these players have landed if you're just talking DFS.
No, not really. You're going to get that lineup each day, and that's really all the information you need to know. Now, we'll need to know. It's going to become very important very quickly to see how much teams are pinch hitting, because it's going to change up the theory of stacking if teams are running through every bat they can. And that's not going to be fun whatsoever. But being ahead of that will be more important than ever before.
So let's talk about this a little bit. Before we do, by the way, we're giving away two free, not annual, 2 free monthly MLB passes to get you started. All you have to do is go to @Awesemo_com on Twitter. It's very easy. Simple way to figure this out. Simple way to win. 2 MLB monthly passes to all access monthly, to projections, ownership, the top stack tool, all of our premium articles, everything we have, lineup builder, and so much more. All you have to do is like the tweet and follow @Awesemo MLB and @Awesemo_com. Opening day starts on July 23rd. We'll be doing the drawing soon, but go there. You'll see it's the pin tweet @Awesemo_com. Follow those rules. It's very simple. And keep your eyes on that Twitter handle, on our Twitter feed, because we're going to be doing some flash sales. And we're not exactly saying when, but they will be happening. Josh, as you remember, during the shutdown, we did some pretty wild flash sales for esports, for MMA, for PGA. We're going to be getting back into that action for MLB as well.
Yeah, they're fantastic deals. They pop up out of nowhere in a flash, one might say. And you can get a lot of value for minimal money. And all you have to do is just pay attention to our Twitter account. It doesn't really get any easier than that. Why not? If I knew that I could spend significantly less on anything that I buy just from following their Twitter account, I would do it.
Yeah, no question. And if you go to awesemo.com/join, you'll see all of our other packages from monthly to annual. We don't just do a la carte. Like if you wanted to get every sport for the month or for the year or even for the week or even an express pass for $3.95 a week, we've got you covered. Everything at awesemo.com/join. All of our projections, our ownership, our top stack tools, and everything else are designed, created, and used, keyword, used by Alex Baker himself, #1 ranked DFS player in the world. These aren't just his name plastered on him that he doesn't use. No, he uses all of these tools for himself, which has made him the highest ranked DFS player out there. And I would consider him the best as well. So you know what you're getting. It's the real deal. You got a lot of great contributors that put a ton of work into all of the articles and tools and rankings and cheat sheets. But when you need to win, look, if you're MMing and you want to win, you need good projections. You need good ownership projections. And the top stack tool is something that took me a long way last season, was really, really fun to work with. And it was something new that I had never used before. So go to awesemo.com/join and check all of that out. There's something for everybody. I know it's tough times for some people financially, but we've got you covered with whatever basically fits where you stand financially right now. All right, Josh, back into the pinch hitter thing. We talked about the DH, right? And we'll get into the effects that has. But when it comes to pinch hitting, do you anticipate us seeing a lot of these guys? Okay, let me step back for a second and phrase this better. And I want to go to you too, Jake. I think this is really important, something I haven't thought about a ton yet, but we need to. If you've got the issue of managers willing to pull pitchers much earlier, particularly guys that might not be their workhorse aces, right? And running out far more scenarios where you've got several pitchers going through the first 5, 6, 7 innings. How much do we have to worry about the righty that can't hit right, or let's say the lefty that can't hit lefties but smokes righties leading off against a righty, and then the next time around, there's no longer a righty on the mound? How much do we have to worry about pinch hit scenarios here?
It's a good question. I mean, I want to say that it's more, but at the same time, you're going to see it less because of no DH in the NL. Does that make sense?
Explain.
I think that teams are going to be more likely to make switches because rosters are expanded. You just have more players so that you can do more things. But since there's no opportunities for double switches or actually manipulating your lineup in the NL, now that you'll have a DH, that volume is going to come down. You're not making changes for change's sake. You're not definitely taking a pitcher out any longer. So the lineup construction will be a little bit different. But I think that, the smartest managers should be more tactical now because you have more options. It's really just that easy. If you have more guys that you can put into a game, you have more opportunities to take out relatively equal hitters, but get on the better side of a lefty-righty matchup.
Jake, where do you stand on this? Is it something we can even? I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole where we talk about stuff that we can't practically apply to our DFS game, right? But is it something where you might, grade somebody lower because we know they can't hit both-handed pitchers and they're facing a team that is more than willing to run out a lot of pitchers?
Yeah, so I think that in that scenario, it can be useful. Like, there's not a lot of intuition, I think, most of us use in baseball. There might be some with pitching or pitch type and stuff like that, but in other sports you can kind of make more gut calls. And the one scenario I'm thinking of is, let's say a stud gets a day off, and there's not going to be that many days off, but let's say there was a sick second baseman, not sick like COVID sick, but like he's really good. And now all of a sudden, yeah, you probably can't say that anymore, can you? You got to be careful when you're talking about sports.
You're fine.
But let's say he takes a day off, and Chris Owings, back to my guy, Chris Owings, the worst player in DFS, is 3K on DraftKings, and he's leading off. All the games being a dire win situation, like that second baseman is probably going to he's probably going to pinch hit for Owings or whoever his replacement is. And so like that might be fade the cheap chalk guy that's leading off. It's not actually a good hitter situation. Like, I know some really good DFS players had good seasons last year just doing those types of things, fading the 25% owned guy, the least expensive guy, the worst hitter in the stack, but the chalkiest player because he pops as a good value. And the stack can still go off without that guy, or maybe he only gets one at bat. Even if he hits a double or something, you still don't necessarily need that guy in your stack. So those would be the kind of situations I would be looking at for pinch hit risks.
No question. And Josh, to dig a little bit deeper on that, people, if you've got a $2,500 player leading off in a relatively good matchup, people are generally unwilling to fade him, even if it is the move and even if he's a massive pinch hit risk. Now, we have to be very clear about what all of us and Jake just said. If he's $2,500 and he's somebody that can hit both-handed pitchers, I'm not worried about that. But there are a lot of players out there, Owings being a good example, and there's many more. It's just, I haven't been in baseball mode for a while that I can't think of right now. There are many more out there that are good, very good, against a single-handed pitcher or a pitcher from one hand. What the fuck am I talking about? A lefty.
Franklin Gutierrez, like that's another guy back in the day.
A single-handed pitcher. Listen to me. I think there's
Jim Abbott? Jim Abbott.
Yeah, exactly. But you know where I'm going with this. As far as pinch hit risk goes, in must-win scenarios, people are still going to run out there and play the Chris Owings leading off because they think it's too good to pass up.
One key caveat for all of this: we are talking about GPPs. If that guy is chalky and it's a cash game, you still play him. Then you're not trying to pivot off of a guy that might lose a play to
for sure.
50% owned in cash. Very different scenario. You still play him. Then it doesn't matter. GPPs are where you want to be cognizant of guys that might not actually finish the game.
Right. In cash games, you just kind of bite the bullet and play somebody like that for sure.
Yeah.
But we're in for a whirlwind experience, Jake. Like we really are. And I'm curious to get your opinion on game selection and volume here as we start the year. Will you be diving in head first over the first, say, week of the season? Will you be feeling it out? What will your process be? Any different than it's been in the past? Curious to know where you stand on something like this, knowing that what we're dealing with really is unprecedented.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I try not to just go all out on the first slate of the season, because then if you lose it, then you're digging yourself a hole. Unless you're Awesemo, unless you're petty theft guys like Brick, you probably don't need to be playing your max volume necessarily right away. I'm definitely going to play in the $10 or whatever tournament, 250K to first, even on this 2-game slate, because it's fun. But I'm also trying to make money. I'm going to take advantage of playing these 20 maxes and nothing's really going to change for me that much. I don't play cash games. I'm not going to start playing MLB cash. Like if there's a $5 double up or whatever, I'll just throw a random lineup in there, but I'm not going to be like grinding anything that I wouldn't normally grind. So.
And I think, Josh, one thing that people generally forget about early season situations is that everybody's in the same position, right? Like you all have the same players in the player pool. You all have, generally speaking, the same information as far as the volatility is going to go or the unpredictability is going to go. It's just a matter of what you do with that. So it might actually be wise with the discussions we're having right now. Everybody watching the show, by the way, hit that thumbs up. It helps us a ton. And subscribe if you're new to the channel. If we're kind of trying to aggregate all of this information before the season starts, we might be able to make decisions that other people don't make who are treating it like it's any other season.
Oh, without question. Yeah. Oh God, I'm coming out like it's normal. I'm going to play like it's normal in that I'm not coming in light. That's for sure. I'm going right back to what I would normally do for baseball. With the difference being that I have to pay attention a little bit more than I normally did, because I think that we're going to see some quirks right out of the gate that are different than they normally were. It's going to be, obviously baseball is pretty set it and forget it. You get a lineup and you don't really have to pay much attention to it. I don't mean it like from that regard, but just it's going to have like a hair of projecting the NBA minutes to it. Trying to look at that lineup and think like, are all 9 of these guys, like how many of these guys are long for the entire game? Or how many do I have to lop off a half a plate appearance for and really change up the structure of what I'm doing?
I think there are some people that haven't seen you since the end of the season. Dope Heathen, hell of a name, guy. He looks like Ovechkin. I don't know if he's talking about you or not.
I don't know what Ovechkin looks like, so Jake will know more than us.
Well, the similar hair, you got the beard and everything. I'm not sure. Dope Heathen, let us know if you're talking about Josh looking like Ovechkin. Have you not cut your hair in the 4 months since quarantine?
No, I haven't cut it since February.
Okay, well, I'm proud to say I think I've had 4 or 5 haircuts since all of this went down.
The only hair that has been cut on me has been shaving my beard off for our mustache bet.
Well,
good to hear.
Oh, from the shoulders up. My bad.
I actually did some manicuring the other day for the first time in a while. And let me tell you, it was a process. Anyway, if you guys have any other questions, baseball questions, before we head out, we'd be happy to answer them. It's been great having everybody back. Let me tell you, it really is. Jake, having you back on the show, Josh talking baseball again. Jordan Klein producing today's show, doing a great job. You can see we got a whole lot of new stuff going on. We use this downtime to actually work on some production value stuff. We hope you guys like that as well. But yeah, if you have any other questions before we head out of here, happy to answer them. Just as far as process or strategy or teams or players or the league goes, we'll get into all of that. Also take this second to let you know that 6 p.m. Eastern time, we've got an NBA refresher show coming up tonight as well. We'll be doing baseball tomorrow at noon Eastern. We'll be doing baseball at Wednesday at noon. And then next week, as basketball gets close to being underway, we're going to have Monday through Thursday shows getting you ready for everything in the NBA. So I don't know. That's a lot to say, Josh, but I'm just glad to be back. I'm happy to see a lot of old faces or names in chat from the good old days, from the glory days. It's good to be back, man.
It is good to be back. I didn't think that we were ever going to talk about sports again.
I know.
How weird is it to like sweat an actual sport you're like used to playing? Because like none of us really played like MMA. Like Josh, you played some MMA, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But, like NASCAR. Like I forgot what it feels like to like actually be like knowing the sport a little bit before we go into the slate, rather than like I'm trying to catch up on PGA, MMA, NASCAR. I'm playing all these not necessarily very well. But like baseball is a sport I feel like I know a little bit about, and that definitely helps when you're playing DFS day in and day out.
Oh, dude, I tried some of the other ones and I was just miserable. Just miserable trying some of these sports. I've spent a lot of time in NBA and MLB and NFL. It's tough. It's tough jumping into those other sports, especially if you're not particularly interested in them. But Liquid Demon says, let's hope it actually happens. It's happening, dude. Leave your pessimism at the door, at least for now. I'm happy for you to come on Twitter and say, Laffy, I told you so. I was right. That's fine. But wait till it happens. Until then, let's get away from that. What is lineup builder? Jared, actually, if you go to awesemo.com/join, this is not a sales pitch. Scroll down and we have like tutorials and videos on how to use all of those tools and lineup builder included. So it's way better than me explaining it to you here. Anything else, Josh? We got anything else on here? I was seeing if there's any questions. Did we run? I think, Julius, are you guys run Crun yet? I think that means, did you guys run crunches yet?
I have not run Crun yet.
Alex just updated projections for the MLB slate. If you guys didn't see that,
there we go.
Oh, nice. I'm going to start using that. Run Crun.
Yeah, I didn't run any Crun yet.
What did that first Crun run look like? I like that.
I can't wait till the first tweet when it's Fantasy Crun is down.
Can we get Alex on an MLB show? Yeah, dude, he'll be on with us tomorrow
and Wednesday.
He was also I have a show on Sirius XM Fantasy, Awesemo Radio. It's 5 to 7 on Saturday and Sunday. Alex joined me on Saturday for like a full segment on projections and ownership and the top stack tool and everything. It's Sirius 210 XM87, but if you have the app, just search Awesemo Radio or search my name, Dave Loughran, not Laffy_Dave, and you will find it. It's well worth watching. And it got me back, like remembering things that I may have forgotten because we haven't had baseball in not a calendar year, but pretty close. Like what, 9 months?
Yeah. No one plays we weren't playing the playoff slates, right? Like you guys were playing
I wasn't,
NBA and so it's been a while. Like we saw September baseball last. So really like it's been like close to a full year of like real slates.
That's a good point. Yeah. So like 10 months almost since wow. Jamal, yeah, it's on the SiriusXM app on demand. KBO, have you been playing KBO, guys?
Periodically.
Yeah.
I tried it for the first few slates and then I don't know. I
didn't feel like staying up.
Yeah, I was playing like the lower stake stuff on FanDuel and just trying to like get my feet wet and didn't want to wake up. I wasn't winning. That was probably, like if I had banked 20K right off the bat, I'm sure I would
you'd be all
stuck with it for a while.
Yeah, you'd have been, KBO's the best.
Yeah, but like I see people grinding it on Twitter like this whole time, and shout out to you guys. I'm sure there's an edge in it, and just waking up, like I would just see the amount of dead lineups in some of these tournaments. But I don't know. I don't think I really am that much better than your average player at KBO DFS, so no reason for me to play it.
Here's a fun question. Exotic Angels. What team do you think will get a good jump on the season? I guess the question is, do we think any of these teams, do we have any data to suggest that there are teams that could come out of the gate quicker than others, Josh?
I don't think so. Nothing that I can think of.
I can't think of anything either.
It's just so hard to predict, like, if you're talking like 10 games or 5 games, like
so tough.
What's going to happen? Any team could go 1-9. Any team can go 9-1. Like, I'm just excited to see who the team is. Like looking back on it, be like, wow, I keep thinking of the Marlins or the Tigers. Someone starts off 10-3 and they're winning all these games in their division. And then it's like, well, we have to kind of just go for this, even if they're rebuilding. Like you can't just punt on the season when you're in a playoff spot and it's,
but can you? That's what I'm wondering about the trade deadline. Like, do you actually have to go for it? If you're, say, we'll take the Tigers, right? We'll take the Tigers. If it were the White Sox, I actually think the White Sox are going to be better than projected this year. I like the White Sox. But let's take the Tigers. Not a very good team. They sold off a lot of their, more solidified assets, and now they're rebuilding. Jake, you're telling me if they get off to, say, 15-7, that they've got to go for it?
Like, when's the last time the Tigers have been good? I think that matters too. Like, you have to keep your fans involved. like no one shows up to their games anyways. And
yeah, the
it would be
Marlins
easy
and
for them
Tigers are going to be in very familiar scenarios.
yeah, like it would be a cool story if they made it, even in a shortened season. Who's going to remember if they have a World Series run? And it's probably not going to happen. But I mean, like if some team like that all of a sudden gets hot, they win a playoff series, like that'd be a really special thing to look back and say, look, when we were in it, we went for it. And that does matter to owners, I think.
Yeah, I guess my question, Josh, and I don't know the answer to this, but like, do you sell off quality minor league assets to add a rental in a 60-game season?
I wouldn't rent anything unless I were a team that actually had good aspirations. I'd be trying to sell like crazy, because the most that you could add from a wins perspective at best is 1 win from this trade deadline till the end of the season, which obviously is different when the margins are, a third of what they normally are. If I'm, the Yankees, the Dodgers, and something happens and I need a piece, different to me.
Yeah, of course.
I would not be taking a shot if based on my record. I would want to be very critical of what my actual odds of making the playoffs were. And I don't think teams will be like that. I'd be trying to sell off anything that wasn't bolted down.
I think so too. Here's a fun question. We'll end with this. Matthew asks, who will be the breakout pitchers this year? Jake, you got any pitchers that you're looking at that can break out? A couple of years ago, it was Herman Marquez with a really phenomenal year. Luis Castillo not long before that. We've gotten a lot of breakout pitchers that really we didn't expect to be as good as they were for one reason or another. You got anybody here that you say this could finally be their year, or maybe it's someone we don't really know about?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've always liked this guy, but like looking at the Cy Young odds, he's actually higher than I thought. Or most strikeouts, he's 33 to 1. I feel like he's been around forever, and he's my age. He's 20. He's older, a little bit older than me. He's 26.
You are gonna pick my dude.
Glass now.
Oh no! I got another 26-year-old guy for you.
Glass now. That's my guy.
I know. I remember watching you even before I was like into like a lot of DFS stuff. Like when I was getting into it, you loved him when you were at FanDuel.
Yeah.
And so I forgot about that. But
great call.
You're definitely
I didn't
there.
think about that.
He's only 26.
That's a good one, Jake. I didn't. Glasnow's got nasty stuff.
Yeah.
He just had crazy walking problems. He couldn't hold runners because he's 19 feet tall. but he throws flames, man. What about you, Josh? You got anybody?
Yeah, had a monster 2019 after being an incredible disappointment for years. Also 26 years old. Better odds to win the Cy Young than Tyler Glasnow. Giolito.
Oh, nice.
He struck out 32% of hitters in 2019. Like he
was great.
He could come in and run through this league this year, and I would not be shocked at all. That's a big-time strikeout number.
Yeah.
He made some adjustments last year, and everything came together. It was like all the stars aligned for Lucas Giolito, man. Yeah. Really good pitcher. Giolito's, what are his odds at?
Plus 1,800 for the Cy Young.
Plus 1,600 for strikeouts.
Okay, so, wow, okay. 16 to 1.
Yeah.
Huh. Glasnow's 33 to 1. Man, that's crazy. What about there's so many. I think Josh mentioned it earlier in the show. We can end here, but there are so many guys on this list that if they won it, I'd be like, okay, I get it. It makes sense to me. Luis Castillo comes back with a monster year. Shane Bieber, DeGrom, so many of these guys could do that. I'll give you one. I give you one in a shortened season. If we see aces not go as long, Robbie Ray at 40 to 1 for strikeouts. He's a strikeout monster, but he runs pitch counts up and he generally doesn't go super deep into games. That could be mitigated in a season like this based on what other pitchers are doing. Robbie Ray last year had a 31.5% K rate. He's been at 31% or higher for 3 straight seasons now, Jake. He walks a lot of guys. He's got issues. But I retweeted a video yesterday where he's actually changed his arm action, and there's a belief that he could be even better this year. Robbie Ray 40 to 1 is kind of sexy.
I like that call. Shortened season, like you might not see Garrett Cole pitch as many like 8-inning games, 7-inning games. But like if Robbie Ray can, like he's a guy who like legitimately has like 13K upside in like 5 2/3 innings. Like he's done that kind of thing where he just gets on, but he gives up a bunch of runs. He walks guys, like you said. And yeah, I really like that call. Wish I could bet legally.
I got 2 more for you. Same team. NL MVP. What if John Gray or Erman Marquez don't make a bunch of starts in cores, but pitch predominantly on the road? They're 66-1.
Yeah.
Wow. Like, what if the schedule just breaks and they pitch 2 home games out of their 11 starts?
John Gray, from a talent perspective, has some of the best pitches in baseball. He just, a couple of years ago, if you actually looked at the numbers, he had some of the worst luck you could find. And I don't mean just at cores, Josh. I mean, he had horrible, horrible luck. But when you look at his whiff rates, you look at his swinging strike rates, you look at he couldn't generate any double play balls, so he got killed on that. There were a lot of things. John Gray's really a good pitcher. And Herman Marquez has got some of the filthiest breaking stuff out there. It just doesn't break in cores.
Right. Yeah, like if in these short samples, if the schedule breaks the correct way, it could look very, very different. When you're going to get 34 starts or something over a season, it's probably all going to come out in the wash. But if you're only going to get 12, who knows what that split ends up being? Same for like a couple other, other extremes, guys coming from insert pitcher's park here, like, Oakland to somewhere else. Maybe it's worse.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, fellas. I missed this. I could keep going a lot longer, but I think this is a good time to put a bow on it because, well, we're going to be talking about more of this tomorrow and on Wednesday. And for any of you guys wondering, we've got a lot of topics lined up, and I think these are going to be topics that help everybody. So tomorrow we'll keep going with a bit of a refresher and a primer, but we're going to talk a lot about projections and ownership and the top stack tool and how that stuff is viable. And look, you don't have to be premium subscribers at Awesemo, but still understanding how to use these type of tools is going to take you a long way. We'll get into the players a bit more as well. And then on Wednesday, to close out our refreshers, we're going to look at Fantasy Cruncher, and then we're going to take a first look at Thursday's 2-game slate, which I'm sure we're all excited for. Josh, Jake, it's been a pleasure, boys. We're going to keep doing this all season long. We got a lot of sports ahead of us. Jordan Klein, thanks for producing this one. And to all of you guys, happy to have you back. This is exciting. It's a great time to be alive. Hit that thumbs up on your way out. Subscribe, notification bell, so you always know when new content's dropping next. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Peace.